Hey there, Business of Unicorns podcast listeners. This is Mark, and I'm here to tell you about an awesome free resource on businessforunicorns.com. If you ever find yourself feeling frustrated with your training gym because you know that there are all sorts of things you could work on, but you're not really sure how to prioritize, you don't know what's the most important thing to work on or what order you should be tackling your priorities, well, now is the time to go to businessforunicorns.com, click the button, and fill out our free self-assessment. With the Ultimate Training Gym Owner Report Card, you will gain immediate clarity on just where to be focusing your attention to create more positive impact on your community, to drive more revenue and take-home income, and to do it all with less stress and more peace of mind. So go to businessofunicorns.com, click the button, fill out that free self-assessment, and start building a business and life you love today.
Fitness business nerds, what's up? Welcome to another episode of the Business of Unicorns podcast. I'm here with a very exciting guest who's been on the podcast before. You all know her. You all love her almost as much as I do. It's Jill Coleman. Welcome back, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to chat. It's been a couple of years, I think. Before really pandemic, maybe.
It 100% was before a pandemic, which feels like, many lifetimes ago.
I don't remember, before it, actually. What were we even doing?
Yeah, who knows? What were we even up to? Well, thanks for coming back, my friend. How have you been?
I have been good. We're just enjoying. I'm here in South Los Angeles, and it's beautiful. It's July. It's my birthday week. Getting ready to disconnect for a couple weeks, but yeah, this year's been good to me.
Good for you. Happy early birthday.
Thank you.
Yeah. For those of you who are new to the podcast, you might not know Jill as well as the rest of us do yet. So Jill, you want to just tell any of our brand new listeners who might not have heard of you yet, the one or two people in the world who are living under a rock, can you just tell them briefly, what is you do? Give me your 1 minute bio.
Sure. Yeah. Awesome. So I'm the owner of Jill Fit. And Jill Fit started in 2010 as sort of an online blog. So it was started as a blogger and transitioned into doing online coaching as one does. And at the time, it's funny because I thought that the space was really saturated in 2010, and looking back, it really wasn't compared to now. And I was lucky enough to grow like a pretty fast, loyal readership. And then, grew social media. Within 18 months, we were doing 6 figures online, and people started asking me, "What are you doing? How are you doing this?" And so I started doing some light business mentorship. I didn't know much, but I knew exactly what I had done, and I started sharing that. And then from there, I just completely enveloped myself in all things business, online business, marketing, all that kind of stuff. And so in 2014, pretty much moved to all fitness business coaching. So right now, Jill Fit we still do a little bit of fitness and nutrition, direct to consumer stuff, some fitness programs online. But for the most part, I do business mentorship for all different types of health fitness pros.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, thanks for the quick bio. And listeners, if you're not following Jill, go follow her. And if you're looking to grow an online business, there is literally no one better. There's no one better to follow than Jill for building an online business.
Thank you. When people ask me about starting gyms, I'm like, don't come to me. I don't know what I'm doing. I send them to you guys. I'm like, yes, you guys. I mean, I know you guys do great online too, but I'm like, I don't know.
But
first thing.
I would send them to you, honestly. If you have a brick and mortar, you're going to add some online. Sure, I can help with that. But if your whole thing is online, you got to go to Jill for real. And I'm truly not just saying that because you're the one I'm on the podcast with right now. I literally tell people that all the time. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that.
Let's talk a little bit about this because we were talking before we hopped on, started recording, that the last few years with COVID has really changed the landscape of online fitness businesses. Yeah. So I would just kind of love to hear, what's your kind of hot take? What's your perspective right now, just looking at the landscape overall on how it's changed? Certainly more saturated, which you mentioned already. What else are you seeing?
Yeah. So I have actually really loved it. I mean, I hate to say that because I hate it. I hate that it really has been so hard for so many people, and in different ways it has for me as well. But in a way, I think it really moved the fitness industry forward because I think that it sort of forced consumers to try digital or virtual solutions for fitness. So, obviously within a month of the pandemic, everybody of lockdown, everyone, like everywhere that had home gym equipment was sold out of everything. And, And it really forced a lot of professionals to, and I hate this for our industry, because who would have ever thought that at some point your gym would be closed? You know what I mean? So I hate to say it, where it's like, you need to make sure you're safe and you have multiple revenue streams and whatever, because you never could have known that. And as someone who was a personal trainer for over a decade, my heart really broke for the professionals who just literally had, obviously, no services, no clients, no nothing. And I was working with a lot of them in my beginner program, which is called Fitness Biz Accelerator. Most of them still work full time in the gym, and while they're like sort of starting to learn how to build their online platform and their online audience. And so when lockdown happened, like, I was on these calls with these professionals, like, who were just crying, like, no money overnight, entire salaries wiped out. It was devastating. But with that being said, we saw so many professionals scrambling to figure out online business, which of course I love, because I'm just like, I do believe that this is sort of the future. Instead of being like, I have to just focus on my local area and get as many clients as I can locally, now your market is the world. And so it opens up a lot of possibilities. And it's funny because I still have a lot of professionals who work online, but they're still just more local trainers. They still just attract people in their local area, which is fine, but that's the first step, right? So I love that it really forced a lot of consumers to try out virtual solutions, to have to like download an app, to have to watch a form video, to have to, sign up for a class, to do stuff on Zoom, to have a home gym equipment. And what has been a little bit unfortunate is for the professionals who came online, a lot of them did have really fast success. And I love that, because a lot of their people in person just came online. They were like, hey, instead of doing class in the gym, we're doing Zoom classes. Instead of doing personal training sessions in the gym, we're doing, personal training on Zoom. And they started running group programs and, nutrition courses and stuff like this. And it really took off. And that's great, except for the fact that I think it gave people a false sense of how easy quote online business is. And what we're sort of seeing right now is what I'm calling the pandemic boomerang. We're seeing a lot of professionals who came online, work from home, had more autonomy, didn't have to be at the gym 12 hours a day going, I don't want to go back to the gym. I want to stay here and really figure out how to do this online thing. But a lot of their clients are going back to the gym. So they're not having the sort of clients that they had originally. And so now they're trying to sell other stuff, and they don't have the audience for it quite yet, which is okay. I mean, it's only been a year or so. And that's where sort of someone like me comes in and goes, hey, let me help you transition online, like for real, like actually make this into not just a pandemic business, but like a real lasting legacy online business. And for the people who are willing to do that, they're having some wake up calls, but they're willing to do it, and they're sticking with it, and they're learning everything, marketing, branding, sales. They have to learn business skills, right? It's a totally different skill set. You can't just hop online and be like, I just do Zoom classes now. That's not a business. I mean, it's great, and it was an awesome Band-Aid when we needed it, but for the professionals who are really willing to invest in themselves, learn business education, and they're going to be able to make it online. For the rest of them, it's going to be hard, and it's okay. They might just go back to the gym and be like, I'm cool being a trainer, group fitness instructor, whatever. But the boomerang has been interesting, because we're seeing people's expectations of it being fairly easy, and they're kind of coming up on these roadblocks of like, wait, why am I not getting the numbers I was getting early in the pandemic?
Yeah, well said, my friend. I think it's a great summary, and frankly, you kind of told MFF's story, right? Which I mentioned before. I mean, that's exactly you listed exactly what happened at Mark Fisher Fitness, which is we shut down, we moved online, where everyone moved with us. So we brought hundreds and hundreds of people with us. You're right; it felt almost too easy. Right? And we knew that they were just following us because they were stuck at home in their little 500 square foot
apartments. But you guys already
in New York
had
City.
The loyalty there. Like, they already loved you,
100%.
Yeah.
But I think that's part of what also fed people's sense of this is easy, is they just follow us online. Oh, everyone likes doing Zoom workouts as much as in person. Well, they didn't have any other choice, right? And now, almost 2 years later, we still have a thriving online community. We're going to keep it as part of what we offer, but we've decided not to double down. That we're not actually looking for a global.
You're not trying to grow it and do all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, for us, it's going to be a value add to being in person, and we want to be back in person. That's I think what we're best at. But I think you're so right that so many people have learned as trainers and entrepreneurs that I like having the flexibility of having an online business, and I do have to learn a whole somewhat different skill set.
And they're really hard on themselves, right? I think they think because they are a trainer, they like. like when we talk about a quote online business, we're like, I think it's easy to just think it's just posting online, right? You just post captions and you just
Instagram,
and you and I both know, obviously, Instagram's not a business, but I think it feels easy. So then they go, well, I don't need to invest or I don't need to learn. I mean, I know you guys have a really successful mentorship where you like teach people a lot of these skills. And I think they're sort of beating themselves up for not knowing business skills. And I'm like, this is hard. People literally go to school for this, to college for 4 years to learn this stuff. So for those who are willing to really be resourceful and be tenacious, I think that they will be able to make that transition. One of the things that I really think, and I'm sure you guys saw this as well, was a lot of people who maybe would not have done online, like clients who would not have done online solutions, were so much more open to it, obviously, because that was all they had. Yeah. But it really did force a lot of people to try new things, to download an app and sign up for a class and, buy a Peloton or whatever they were doing. And so I think while the online space for professionals is becoming more saturated, we also have more potential clients than ever too. So, 100%. I mean, I think it's, so it's not just like a full-on scarcity thing. There's a lot of people who are now willing to do more online solutions because they were forced to try their first one during the pandemic.
Yeah, 100%. And I know tons of friends and ninjas at Mark Fisher Fitness who, if we asked before the pandemic, they never would have hopped online for a Zoom class. They never would have done it. And now there are some of the people you can't pry it away from. They're obsessed with it. I would like to dive a little bit deeper into kind of what you think the kind of core skill set is for online entrepreneurs, people who are going to build an online fitness business, especially the core skill set that you think is somewhat different than doing it at a brick and mortar. So if you had to put together kind of your beginner toolbox, which you have a whole course that does this, what is the beginner toolbox for someone who wants to really be a successful long-term, as you said, legacy online entrepreneur? Where do they start?
Yeah, it's such a good question. I'm really obsessed with this question, like obsessed with it from the perspective of trying to figure out best practices, right? Because obviously I have a lot of people who come in to JillFit and they're so hungry to learn this stuff. And some people have really fast success and other people will struggle for years. And I'm always obsessed with trying to figure out what the best practice, like what are the differences between those types of people. You know what is really interesting? I used to think that anyone could do this. 10 years ago, I was like, if you just try hard enough and whatever. I don't know that that's the case anymore. And you guys know this. I mean, you're entrepreneurs too. I think there is a special, it's not a better or worse thing, but there is a set of skills or a set of even just characteristics for an entrepreneur that you have to have. You have to be a little bit more okay with uncertainty, a little bit more okay with risk. You have to get resourceful. You have to be okay with investing. And I don't know that everyone is okay with that and should be okay with that. If I was someone who had 4 kids, I don't know that I would take the type of risks that I do, or I have in the past. And so, sometimes some people value autonomy more, some people value certainty more, safety more. And so I think you have to know yourself too. So I see a lot of people struggling for years trying to make it work. And I'm like, maybe you should just go get a job. There's nothing wrong with that. It will just 100%. Give you a sense of safety, right? Go work for someone else, have creative freedom within an organization. So it's not all on you. So I do think there's a set of characteristics and personality traits that you sort of have to, and maybe you don't know if you have it or not until you try. But I would say in terms of tactical stuff, there are certain business skills that you have to develop. Now, when we call it a skill, innate in that definition is that you have to get better at it through reps. You don't just know how to do marketing, know how to do selling, know how to, write. I mean, so obviously one of the things that we do at FBA is we teach sort of a 3-tiered customer journey. So essentially, and this, obviously people come in as sort of, I don't know, warm leads. They maybe follow you on social media. This is what we call the intrigue phase. So it's the 3 I's. The intrigue phase is someone's just trying you out. They follow you on social. They're sort of maybe, and none of this is happening consciously, by the way. They're sort of seeing are you their vibe? Can you provide solutions that are helpful to them? Is there utility in following you? And so that's the base of the pyramid is how do we get people? And the reason why we focus on social media as the first step is because that's where your potential clients are already hanging out online, right? They're not hanging out on your website. They're not hanging out in your email list or anything like that. Online, literally, the water cooler is social media. So that's where people are hanging out. So that's where we start there. That's the biggest base of the pyramid. This is going to be your free content. So social media, podcasting obviously falls into that, blogging, anything where people can access you to just sort of try you on. Now, part of that content as a professional is you do want to have what we call basically rappel and trust building. So we actually want people to decide yes or no. Is Michael someone worth following, or is he just not my vibe and I'm going to unfollow? And that's a perfect system. I do love that filtering system because as a personal brand, you have to show up as you, and however you show up will be a line in the sand for some people. And the people who stay are going to be your hardcore fans and your, people who will eventually become customers, and those who leave are not your people. It's great. So it's a great filtering system. So the intrigue content is first. I have a lot of people who come in to FBA and say, I just need to create a course. And I'm like, we can create all this stuff we want, but if you don't have the audience to sell it to, then we're not going to make any money. So first is always build the audience, right? So that intrigue content will do that. The second piece is, and you have to be consistent with that. So there's obviously a lot of like mindset tools around tenacity and managing your expectations. I mean, you're brand new, so you're not going to come on to Instagram or TikTok and automatically have like thousands of followers. You got to have a level of resiliency. And so there's a whole set of sort of mindset challenges, and mindset challenges are typically the hardest in the beginning because you feel like no one's paying attention. So you're like, if I just quit this thing, no one cares. As soon as you have a little bit more success, you feel a little bit more on the hook. The second phase, the second I, is what we call insight-based content. So insight content is like, now someone's in a more of a closed container with you. So maybe this is when they send you a DM and now you have a conversation with them. Maybe they get onto your email list, they download some sort of lead magnet or freebie that you're doing, and now you have their attention in more of a closed container. Maybe it's a closed Facebook group or SMS messaging, something like that. And so we want to graduate people from social media to that next level, that more like insight based. And the reason why we call it insight is because now it's about them. If they download a lead magnet of mine, now they're starting to now implement some of these things and maybe get a win. If they sign up for my free challenge, they're going to start doing some stuff and start building some momentum with me. And so I want them to get a win with me. I want them to have success with me in a free capacity. Okay, so there's intrigue, insight, and then last, of course, investment content. So that's the last piece, is then inviting them to join one of your paid products, whether it's one-on-one coaching, group coaching, a challenge, a course, something like that. And so we want to always be moving people up this pyramid from free content to what I call container content into, a paid situation. And so when you understand that, really, there's no getting around the fact that you have to learn, you have to be proficient in social media somehow. Unless you have a ton of money that you can just throw at like ad spend and throw at a team and a social media manager and all that kind of stuff, most of my clients don't have that. So they have to learn how to use social media to start really just getting people excited about their brand. And so from a skills perspective, this is stuff like video and audio content, and like, you might need to get a photo shoot done. And a lot of my clients haven't written as much content as they're writing online since like high school, so like you might have to get better at writing and communicating your ideas and sharing your solutions and sharing your stories. And all of that stuff is a skill. So if you're not good at writing, you're not good at social media, like you're going to have to get better as a result of just pressing publish more. So I always tell my ladies that now is the best time to mess up. Like, be bad now, because it's the smallest your audience is ever going to be. So go ahead and get your reps now and then move people through that skill set. Then we sort of start layering on things like marketing, sales, product development, lead generation, creating freebies, lead magnets, stuff like that. All of that sort of comes next. But all of that stuff is skills. I think people assume they're supposed to know how to do it and they're supposed to be good at it. They're not. Like, you're writing a sales page, you've never written one before, writing a landing page, creating a freebie, being compelling on social media. All of these things are skills. They can be taught, but you have to be willing to stick it out, and that takes time. And you have to be willing to suck for a while.
Yeah, for sure. I'll just tell you, Jill, listeners, you can see why Jill's the best. That's one of the best descriptions of just marketing we've had on this podcast.
I'm so glad.
So
Makes
bravo.
sense.
The 3 I's make sense. It's a perfect pyramid that you have to invest in your audience before you engage with them and make it personal and build value before you can ask them for money to buy things. Right? It has to go in that order, and you can't build the ship and expect them to come, or build the boat. I don't know what the analogy is, but there's no build it and they will come,
right,
especially online. There's so many choices people get to make. There's literally an endless amount of content to absorb.
Totally.
So you got to answer the question right away: why you? Why yours?
And that's the thing is don't make the mistake of thinking your information is special. And I hate to say that, because obviously there's people, they spend thousands of dollars on credentials, whatever. You're never gonna sell someone because you have the best. It's commodity, right? So what's really going to tip the scale into someone wanting to work with you is probably not the fact that you no macros the best, or you have the best glute exercises. Like, it's never going to be that. It's going to be something about you and the energy that you bring. And you guys obviously at MFF, you guys do this really great, but like people are attracted to the energy. They want to be in that space with you. And so they can't do that if you're showing up and you're sort of vanilla and you're sort of like lukewarm. You have to give them a reason to fall on either side of the hell yes or hell no. And oftentimes people who struggle are the ones who just stay in that like middle vanilla space, and they're like wondering why they never get any traction.
Yeah, I mean, you're a perfect example of it in this conversation, and a meta version of that is happening. Like, you just gave away your 3 eyes framework, and you're not stressed about that at all, because you know, even if someone wrote all of that down, they need help doing it. Right? They need you to hold their hand, coach them through it, and so, and that's the thing, is people are afraid to give away all of their best information. But friends, information is free. What the people are paying you for is the coaching and the interaction and the guidance and the care and so let's talk a little bit about, you brought this up, the kind of mindset challenges. I love that you brought that up, because it's huge, especially early on when you don't have an audience. You feel like you're just swimming in the sea of nothingness and no one's paying attention and they never will. And so I think that's a big part of it. But another big part of the mindset shift I see with people who do a lot of work online and putting themselves out there online is the judgment, right? Is that putting yourself out there requires a ton of vulnerability, especially when you're sharing real things. I mean, so many folks like yourself who have a kind of personal brand that is about them share lots of personal stories and anecdotes and insights about their lives. And it's being put out there in the world to be judged, sadly, in this day and age. And a lot of the things people I see who maybe shy away from investing more fully in an online brand or persona are often afraid of that. And there's a mindset shift around growing to understand that risk and learning how to navigate it. So you just maybe talk a little bit about, I'm sure could be its own podcast, but how did you develop the mindset of being willing to put yourself out there, knowing that what's out there sometimes is a bunch of freaking trolls?
Yeah. This is one of the biggest, for sure, roadblocks for people taking that next step. So one piece of advice that I always give my students is like, get your first hater as fast as possible, your first troll as fast as possible, so that you can see that it's actually not that bad. I think it's so much bigger in your head than it is. I mean, and yeah, it will ruin your day for sure, especially the first time. It might even ruin your week the first time, because it highlights a sensitivity you maybe already have. So for example, if you are already worried that you're going to be found out, that you're a fraud, that somehow you shouldn't be doing this, like you mentioned it when you said like that it's never going to work, right? So we always have these feelings of insecurity. It's already a sensitivity of yours, and that's valid. You don't know that you're good yet. Literally, you just showed up online today and you don't know that you're good quite yet. Of course, once you get more reps and you get more affirmation and you start making sales and whatever, you're like, oh, okay, maybe I am good at this. So when you show up, I do want to validate the fact that like you don't know you're good. So if you do have a troll or a hater come in and say, what's this? And like call you out on something, the tendency is to shrink down and to like pack it up and be like, oh, well, I guess I shouldn't be doing this, because it highlights our own sensitivity, right? It's just like point a finger. Now, if I get a troll or I get someone doing something to me, it's just like delete and ban. Like it doesn't even affect me. Like maybe 20 seconds, right? But back, a decade ago, for sure, it would ruin my entire week, because it would be my own sensitivity. Like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be doing it. Maybe I don't know what I'm doing. And so just remember that this is just a person on the other side of the phone with a keyboard. Like that's literally all it is. It's not your mom or dad getting mad at you. It's not your high school teacher. You're not in trouble. Like you're not doing it wrong. It's just, especially if you have that sensitivity or that like perfectionist mentality, right? You just feel like, oh my God, should I not be doing this? Who's looking? Like it feels so sensitive, and it's so easy in that moment to tap out. So get your hater, get your first troll, get your first hater. That's why I do like something like FBA, which is my course, because a lot of my girls will get their hater and they'll come into the group and be like, I got my first troll. I'm so excited. Like it's working, right? Because chances are, if you're not really making any waves, you're probably not going to get much hate, right? Like you're not going to get, I don't really get a ton either, but especially in our space with the nutrition and the science, I feel like that's obviously where people sort of start to go in on things. We have this really obsession with being right. And so many of the things that my girls help people with, like food relationship and, boundaries and like just some more like amorphous things, you can't, there's no fact to that, right? It's however it feels for you. So I think some of the biggest, what I say to someone who's worried about this, definitely get your first troll or hater as fast as possible, so you can see it's not that bad, so you can work through it and thicken up your skin a little bit. But the other piece of it is realize that you sharing about your own transformation in a vulnerable way. What I teach in FBA is I teach people how to tell their story based on like feelings and emotions, not facts and figures, right? We don't connect with that. So how do you tell your story in a way that it elicits a response from someone to go, gosh, that's me. Who you used to be is me now. So if Jill can do it, or if Michael can do it, maybe they can help me overcome the same thing. And so you have to tell a story in a vulnerable enough way so someone will connect with it. If I just tell you facts and figures like, oh, I went here, I did this, I ate that. Like if it's just facts and figures, it doesn't really connect as much. And so someone's not going to feel compelled to reach out and want to work with you. So the nature of storytelling is vulnerable if you're doing it in the right way. But I try to remember that and I remember this even when I was blogging and I didn't have a readership, I remember we published every day for the first 2 years. And I remember going, oh, I don't like, who's even reading this? Like no one's even paying attention. And I said, you know what, Jill, even if one person reads it and it helps them, and then I'm obligated to do it. So you have to sort of turn your insecurity into obligation at some point. You have to sort of have this turning of the corner where it's like, it can't be about you anymore. Yeah. And that's sort of where I got to. It's not about me and my sensitivities and my insecurities. It's about the one person who's out there who this might help. And when you flip it on its head like that, all of a sudden you don't see it as like, oh, this is bad for me. You say this, I'm obligated to put this out. And it was one of my earliest mentors, Alan Cosgrove. I'm sure you know him. He said to me, like, if you have a solution for somebody and you're too scared to put it out there, you're doing the world a disservice. And I was like, man, how does that just take your insecurities right out of it, right? It's like, it's not even about you. So I think if you're struggling with that mindset or that vulnerability, realize that it's actually not about you. And for me, that made it feel like, okay, this is actually a service. And even if it's just one person, then I'm obligated to put it out because that person might continue struggling if they don't see this. And I know that maybe sounds a little bit egotistical, like my story is going to be the thing that changes someone's life, but it could be. And it could be just that life raft that someone needs that day. Maybe it doesn't change their entire life, but it makes them have a better day, switch their mentality about something. And so when you shift your insecurity into obligation, things really start to change.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. I love that reframe so much, right? I think for our listeners, if you are struggling with the vulnerability of putting yourself out there, I think that's a great way to think about it. Which is every time you hesitate, every time you get in your own way of helping people, there's less people you can help, and you never know when you're going to plant a seed that makes a huge difference in someone's life. And so I think it's a great reframe.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, I think insecurities can be selfish, to be honest, especially if you're in the service industry. It's like, it's not about you. Take yourself out of it, and all of a sudden it just becomes about service.
Yeah, well said. Well, I wish we had an hour, but I'm going to try and get to our last question because I could always want to spend countless hours with you.
I know we need to get you guys on FitBizU too.
I know.
I've just been super lazy with interviews. I'm like, I could schedule interviews or I could just do solos. But I want to get you guys on.
My biggest challenge is that, I don't know if you remember, probably when we spoke last, we probably spoke for like an hour.
Yeah.
But I was getting the feedback that, Michael, no one likes hour-long podcasts.
yeah.
Except me. But I was like, but I have a lot of questions. I have a lot of things I want to know. Try to learn here, people.
Same.
And so that's why I'm trying to keep it under 30.
Sure.
But I'll ask one more question in the spirit of wrapping things up, which is let's look into the future. I'll ask Jill to grab your crystal ball and say, knowing that the journey we just described at the beginning of this podcast of where, online fitness business has been, where's it going? What are you seeing? I mean, certainly I've seen, just the ultimate rise in at-home fitness equipment taking over my universe and my social media feeds every single day.
Yep.
With bikes and treadmills and wall things and smart kettlebells, and I've seen it all. So that's certainly something that I see come around the pike. But where do you see the future of online fitness going in the next, let's just say 3 to 5 years?
Yep, I love it. This is interesting. Someone asked me this last week as well. I love this question because I feel like things are changing so fast. Like how people are consuming is changing. Obviously, social media is changing. Obviously, we have the economic sort of implications that we're looking at, potentially facing a recession, all that kind of thing, inflation. So what I've seen and what I think I will continue to see is people are, number one, consumers are coming to online coaches just having more experiences with online stuff. So when you're
more savvy now.
Yeah, exactly. And they've had, unfortunately, maybe a lot of bad experiences, not bad in terms of the coaches themselves, but maybe they've lost weight, they've gained it all back, whatever. And so they're coming to you and you're not the first person they've ever hired, which means that not only are you selling yourself as a coach, but you're selling how you're different than the 20 things they've already done. And so it's going to require fitness professionals become even more better marketers and also niche down even further. Like, you have to be for someone specific, and you have to be good at that thing that you're putting your stake in the ground. So I think it's going to force coaches to not only get better at their skills, niche down even further on what they do provide, or the service they do provide, and for who they provide it. And then they also have to become better marketers. They have to talk about their services in a way that illuminates how it's different than the dozen things that they've tried that they failed at. And so we're just seeing clients coming in with more baggage. So it's going to require professionals to be even better at these business skills that we've been talking about. And so if you are a fitness professional and you're trying to grow your online business and you do not have mentorship or coaching in some business capacity, it is non-negotiable. You're not supposed to know how to do this stuff. And even if you think you can sort of DIY it with free videos on YouTube and free webinars and downloading ebooks, it's not the same as having someone just literally open their playbook for you, like you guys do, or I do with my clients, is like, look, let's get there a lot faster and with less frustration. So I think it's going to require fitness professionals to become business professionals. I think that's going to be a thing too. I think what we're seeing with consumers is that they're craving either more sort of connection and conversation ahead of the sale. So what that means is, like, accessibility is at an all-time high. You can literally DM a celebrity on like Instagram, like maybe get a response. And that's like the first time in years that's been able to happen, or ever. So I think it's going to require maybe more conversations ahead of the sale, more DM conversations, more phone calls. People want to feel connected to their coach because, again, they're not hiring you because you have the best information. They're hiring you because they truly believe that you can help them. And that's going to be everything from your personality to how you say what you say, to the energy, to the vibe, to your previous stories, your transformation, the things that you've done, your experience. So it's going to require us to get even better at marketing, have more conversations, things that don't scale. I know I hate to say that for people who just want passive income, but things that don't scale. And they're also consumers are craving smaller containers. So I think premium, high ticket one-on-one will still always do well. If you're willing to do like premium $1,000 a month coaching, like something like that, there's always going to be a market for that level of attention. People want that level of access, that level of customization. They're also craving, and we're seeing this, most of my my mastermind members are doing masterminds and mentorships, small containers. I know you guys have, your Unicorn Society, and so people are really craving smaller containers. That's one of the number one questions I get for all my programs is, how many people are there going to be? They want smaller containers. They don't want to be I think for beginners, they don't mind being one in a big group because they kind of want to hide a little bit. But once you become an intermediate or advanced, business owner, they want more attention. They want more face time. They want more, access to a coach, and they're willing to pay for it. I joined a mastermind last year as well. I'm in it again this year. And I got on the phone with the person who was running it, and I was like, is this the most expensive thing you have? I think people are going to be willing to pay for more access, for more solutions, and for more smaller containers. And just, instead of being one in a couple hundred people, they want to be 1 in 12, 1 in 10. Yeah. And they're willing to pay for it. So don't make the mistake, if you're listening to this and you're professional, don't make the mistake of thinking that cheaper is always better. People are willing to pay for a premium service. I think it's okay to have something that's more accessible, more affordable, right? There's people at all different price points, but don't assume that if you have something cheaper, you'll make more sales. I think you'd be surprised if you do have a premium offer that you don't need that many people to do it, but you just really have to deliver the level of access, customization that people are looking for.
Yeah. Oh, brilliantly said, my friends. Yeah, that's huge. I think you're right. In this market that's maybe more saturated than it was a few years ago, you got to inch down. You got to get better at loving the business stuff and developing new skill sets, right? You got to be able to connect with your audience and get them to know you and like you and trust you before they're going to buy something, because now they have experience doing this online thing.
Oh, yeah.
You're not their first rodeo, so they're comparing you to stuff they've done before, both good and bad.
Yeah,
right?
Totally.
Right. And I think you're right. I mean, we've always been banging this drum on this podcast, but having coaching and mentorship to help you get there faster and with less stress is just always a smart move, especially if you haven't done this before. And so, yeah.
I don't know how people it's a cheat code. I don't know how people never hire a coach. I mean, I always have a coach. And you look around and the most successful people always have a coach. Always. So it's like when you think about it that way, It's like, you're busy because like, which comes first, chicken or the egg? Do you wait until you have enough money to hire a coach, or do you just say, okay, I have $200. Can I buy a business course for $200? I have $500? Can I buy a course, right? Maybe you can't access like high level mentorship, but there's certainly something you could do even with a small amount. And that's going to just accelerate your process so much faster than trying to figure it out yourself.
Yeah. Well said, as always, my friend. Well, thank you for this. As we wrap things up, how can people find you, take your courses, follow you online? Where are you at?
Awesome. At JillFit on all of the things. So JillFit.com and JillFit everywhere else. Yeah. That's
awesome.
it.
Well, thank you so much for doing this, especially right before your birthday week and your birthday trip. Go enjoy the best time off ever. Thank you again for sharing such valuable information with our listeners. I mean, just so much great information on today's podcast. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Happy early birthday.
Thank you. All right. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Well, I hope you loved today's podcast, and forgive me, I want to remind you one more time, if you haven't already done so, head over to businessofunicorns.com, click the button, and get your free self-assessment, the ultimate training gym owner report card. I promise you're going to want to dig into this resource and get the support you need, finding crystal clarity on exactly where you need to be focusing to create a life and a business you love.